Hi, welcome to Super Awesome Film Club, episode 35. I am your host, Adelaide Blair, and our panel tonight is some of our usual suspects. We've got Ben Nason. Hi, Ben.
Hi.
And we've got Io Blair-Freese, our movie philosopher. Hi, Io.
Hello.
So tonight we're going to be discussing Ken Russell's Altered States. It is the third in our 4-episode series on Ken Russell. This film came out in 1980. It was based on a book by Paddy Chayefsky. He also did the screenplay for it, although I think he and Ken Russell kind of had some differing ideas of the vision that this film should have taken. It stars William Hurt as Eddie Jessup, Blair Brown as Emily Jessup, Bob Balaban as Arthur Rosenberg, and Charles Haid as Mason Parrish.
And Drew Barrymore as one of the random kids.
Yes, this was her and William Hurt's first film roles. Random fact. Okay, so here's our story. So Eddie is an abnormal psychologist, and he's studying schizophrenia, and he has this revelation that all the different states of consciousness that we have are as real as our waking conscious. And he and his friends, or his friend Bob Balaban, start doing experiments in sensory deprivation tanks, and then things happen, and they stop doing that for a while. And Eddie meets Emily, who I think is an anthropologist. Is that what she is?
Yeah, that seems like it.
And she's also super smart, and they have instant chemistry, and they end up getting married. But they have completely different worldviews that are sort of embodied in their professions. So she is an anthropologist, and her belief about human beings is that we must live with uncertainty, and we won't ever know all the answers, and we just go by in our days, and we just kind of deal with stuff, and we love each other, and we just get through knowing that we will never know what the truth of existence is. Eddie, on the other hand, has a lot of religious background. He wants to find the ultimate truth, and he tends not to engage as much with her and other people as they would like, so they end up splitting up. So he goes to Mexico and tries this drug. Does anybody know what it is? I wasn't paying attention.
Like mescaline.
Something like that. And he takes it and has this crazy experience, and then he brings it back and starts taking it while he's in the isolation tank. And Bob Balaban is working with him again, and Charles Haid as Mason Parrish is also kind of monitoring the situation as the more realist person who's like, you guys are fucked up, stop doing this. So he takes these drugs that are crazy hallucinogenics in the isolation tank and starts physically regressing to a proto-human form. At first they think he's just doing it mentally, but then he like physically turns into this proto-human and just kind of goes all over town and eats animals and hits people and stuff. And then Blair Brown comes back, and she's like, what are you doing, dumbass? You're taking these unregulated drugs, and you don't know what's going on. And then he does it again, and everybody's there, and then he devolves into some kind of cosmic, formless consciousness, but she saves him and brings him back to humanity, which he's really conflicted about, because he really doesn't want that. He can't live with not knowing all the ultimate answers. But in the end, she grounds him with her love. It's actually more complicated than that. And there's the whole scene where they're slamming against the walls, where he is becoming physically, I don't know, he's not physical anymore. He's an energetic being, and he touches her, and she becomes a being of pure energy, and somehow her love brings him back. Which sounds kind of pretentious and silly movie, but it's actually really fun. Ben, what did you think of this movie?
Yes, I like this movie. I've only seen Altered States a handful of times, and each time I have a different experience watching it. You know, something different I think I take away from it. And I was kind of watching it this time then through the lens of having seen both Tommy and the Devils recently, and then discussed them on here with you, and noticed, you know, a lot of the religious experiences and aspects that he intertwines in all three of these movies. And I believe you said for the Devils that he does deal with religion a lot again and again in his movies. And this movie pick up on it, I think, as much until watching it recently, just how much of a religious movie I think that this kind of is. My takeaways this time had a lot to do with what I think that he's trying to say with the movie, and that, you know, I think he's Ken Russell is trying to make a commentary on the nature of what, you know, the search for God. I mean, I like Eddie's line. What does he say? I'm going to find the fucker, I believe, is exactly what he says when he is talking and proclaiming that he's going to find God. And so he, you know, goes off in search of that. So I think what Ken Russell's trying to say with this movie, and I'll get to that, I'm sorry, as I'm rambling a little bit, is that the problems in isolation, right? Like, he even says early in the movie that he's interested in interior experiences, and that's why he's studying schizophrenia and religion at that time, is because that he felt that a religious experience is significant inside schizophrenia. And so he's talking about this, like, internal experience of, you know, religion, and how I think he's trying to find God by looking inside. And so that's why he isolates himself by using these isolation tanks, right? And that regresses him to this primal state, and it's love, it's through love, it's through connection that he can be both human and find God, I believe. And that's what I think, you know, overall the movie's trying to say.
Aya?
I really like this movie. I think, just like Ben, I have a different experience every time I watch this movie. I first watched it when I was in college. It was my introduction to my school's philosophy club, and it was a very weird thing to walk in on. They were like, yeah, we're just showing this movie. It's got these concepts. They talked a little bit about it, and then they showed it. Visually, this is one of the most exciting movies that I had seen up to that point in my life. I think I was 21. Just the way that all of the weird kind of acid trips, all of the sensory deprivation tank scenes are just shot in a really beautiful and manipulated in a really beautiful way. I like the scene where he opens up the door to his bedroom and he looks in, and it's, you know, this crazy, like, lava field of a cavern or something. And so I think definitely from an aesthetic perspective it's really fun, but I also really like the characters. I think that that's something that I didn't see as much of the first time. Eddie is incredibly hateable. He's probably one of the most hateable guys I've ever seen on a movie, and yet I still buy him as kind of the main, you know, hero of the story. He's the one who kind of pulls the story along because he's like fanatical. He needs to, like, finish his quest. He needs to find something, even if there's nothing really for him to find. It turns out there is, but he doesn't realize that in the beginning, and he's just, you know, going nuts trying to figure out this, like, one truth or whatever it is. And then Emily, his female counterpart, is incredibly smart. Everything that she says, every time she opens her mouth, there's no dull sentences for her, and I think that that is a really, really neat thing that they did, was make her a very intelligent, very respected character, and eventually she ends up, I think, redeeming him with her love and being, you know, like, just a very versatile kind of woman character who has all the caring elements and also all of the intelligence and a lot of patience. Because I mean, if she's a smart woman, she probably shouldn't go back to Eddie, but she also has a lot of caring and patience as well.
So I think that's really important, is that they do make her a maternal, loving, I mean, she is the grounded figure, but she's not a housewife. She's a respected scientist. She's, smart as a whip. And I really like that they give her that sort of rounded personality that you still don't always see in movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there anything else, Io?
The ideas in this movie are really cool if you start thinking about them kind of on your own, like the idea that our particles are however many 6 billion or so years old, and that, we hold some kind of evolutionary knowledge or don't hold evolutionary knowledge, depending on what you believe in ourselves. I think that the ideas behind this and the ideas that were represented really in the novel before the movie are really neat as well.
Cool. I really enjoy this movie. First of all, because Bob Balaban has a lot of hair, and it's just it's weird because everybody's so young. Because I know, like Io, Blair Brown from what's that show Fringe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so it's just interesting to go back and see Bob Balaban with a full head of hair and very young William Hurt, and so it's just just as a time capsule, it's kind of fun. I think the music in this was really important as far as creating sort of a discordant soundscape, and it was nominated for Oscars in the sound and score, which I think were fully justified because I just feel like so much of the experience comes from what you're hearing in this movie. I like that the effects, they're kind of dated, but I think they stand up really well.
Yeah.
Like I don't look at them and go, oh God, like you do some like early CGI stuff, it's painful. But yeah, no, it's pretty good. I think so all of the movies that we've seen, Ken Russell is dealing with some level of religiosity, but it's not just he's talking about religion. In every film, there's this sort of hallucinatory religious experience. In Tommy, it's when Tommy's in the Iron Maiden, and, that's several plot points of The Devil's hinge on Sister Jean's hallucinatory ecstasy. And that's a thread, and we'll see it again in the next film as well. Just that sort of bright colors, hallucinatory people on crosses, things like that, which I think is really interesting. I think Ken Russell is an interesting guy. One of the things, so he does divide the characters' beliefs kind of along gender roles, but like I said when we were talking about it with Io, is that even though, Eddie's the thinker and Emily's the feeler, they both kind of cross into each other's areas. And I think that makes it more successful than it had, Emily had just been the really nicest mothering housewife in the world. I think it's what makes this movie stand up over time, is that while it still divides sort of those feelings and intellect on gender levels, there's enough crossover that make it worth it. And also, I just want to say I love Charles Hay. Io, you are too young to have ever seen Hill Street Blues, but since my dad was a cop, we watched it every week, and Charles Hay was on that, and he might have been a little dreamy. But I don't know, there's something about Charles Hay and just something about his attitude, and it's just what he brings to the role is this common sense, you guys are fucked up, but I'm along for the ride anyway. And I think he really balances out the kind of dreaminess of Bob Balaban and William Hurt. They're just going to go for it and take the drugs, and they're not thinking about repercussions. And to have Charles Hay come in, he lightens the tone, because this movie can be so talky and so idea-y heavy that I think Charles Hay really lightens it up and puts it all in perspective. Ben, do you have any other comments?
I would reiterate that Charles Hayden love. I do really enjoy the scene when he's introduced to the movie and comes in and just rips them all apart. And he's like, I need to test this drug before you start taking it, and that's going to take a year. What are you doing? You guys are idiots. It's fucking great. I also really like Ken Russell's dark sense of humor. One of the early scenes in the movie that really struck out to me is regarding like the way he kind of emphasizes his sense of humor is when they're first starting with the deprivation tanks, and William Hurt kind of writes off the whole deprivation tank culture as just being part of drug culture and not something that he's really truly going to be deeply invested in because, it's part of drug culture. And immediately cuts to Arthur's party where they are doing drugs.
Yeah. So just as a note, I do the sensory deprivation tank, and while I have hallucinated, I have never regressed to a proto-human form. Although, well, I'm pretty sure that the girls who work at the place where I go would not want to clean up after that, so I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to do that.
You're going to need some of those Mexican mushrooms, though, I think, in order for that to happen.
Well, I live in Seattle. Everything is available. But, Io, any last comments?
Just if you're gonna watch it more than once. I think you'll get a more fun experience the more you watch it.
I'm gonna have to agree with that. I think it's one of those films where there's so much going on that every time you focus on a different area, and it kind of makes the film different, I guess. Okay. So we will be back in 2 weeks with our final film in our Ken Russell series. We will be doing one of my personal favorite movies of all time because it is just so damn silly, Lair of the White Worm. Okay, watch the skies, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.